From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Answering the call for help. See the actions one rancher took to save a calf's life. An increase in tariffs isn't just planned for Mexico and Canada.
We're talking about a tariff of 10% on China.
While a strategic waterway for agriculture is also on President Trump's list.
If that ever was in danger or in peril, U.S. military intervention would be justified.
The impact any disruptions could have on U.S. agriculture right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. Pioneer brand corn has the home field advantage with rigorous local testing to give you a winning season. Pioneer brand corn, your best year starts here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. A key waterway used for moving U.S. goods, including agriculture, around the world is in President Trump's crosshairs. The president, in his inaugural address, mentioning the Panama Canal, saying China controls the canal, adding that the U.S., quote, gave it to Panama and we're taking it back, end quote. AgDay's Michelle Rook has been looking into the critical trade route and what a battle over it could mean for U.S. ag.
Clinton, the Panama Canal is a strategic waterway, and any disruption in access to this critical logistics channel would hurt U.S. ag exports. So the industry is closely watching the developments. Now, in response to President Trump's renewed pledge to take over the canal due to Chinese influence, Panamanian authorities have initiated an audit of Panama Ports Company, which is at the heart of the issue. The Panama Canal has been the center of controversy since the U.S. turned the canal over to Panama in 2000 under a treaty signed between the two parties in 1977. But that treaty binds Panama's operations.
Another ingredient of that treaty is that the canal must always be neutral. It can't prefer one country over the other. And if that ever was in danger or in peril, U.S. military intervention would be justified.
President Trump expressed concern about the Chinese influence in Panama, calling it a national security issue. Steenhoek says China has provided some financing for a bridge over the canal, but at issue is their influence in two regional ports. 2 of the 5 are actually operated by a Hong Kong-based company called Hutchison Port Holdings. And this company originally received a 25-year concession to operate those 2 ports, one on the Pacific side, one on the Atlantic side, in the late 1990s. And so just recently, that 25-year concession came up and it was then re-extended. The audit will look at Hutchison Holdings' compliance with that agreement as part of a broader investigation which aims to ensure the efficient and transparent use of public resources. President Trump also claims U.S. ships have been unfairly charged for using the canal. Steenhoek attributes recent higher freight charges to the drought, which limited service, but also points out the tolls are transparent and governed by the treaty signed with the U.S.
Part of the treaty, made sure that it had to be governed on a neutral basis, so one country, one industry didn't receive preferential treatment. The tolls are very public in how they assess those tolls, and it's based on different types of vessel types, different types of tonnage that's utilizing the canal.
Meanwhile, Panama's president has declared Panama's control of the canal as non-negotiable, and so the ag industry can only hope for a resolution that doesn't disrupt trade. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Meanwhile, tariffs are still on the table when it comes to China, said President Trump during a back and forth with reporters on Tuesday. The president says he's still considering a 10% tariff on all Chinese imports amid concerns about fentanyl trafficking. This after President Trump refrained from immediately targeting China as he took the reins in Washington.
We're talking about a tariff of 10% on China based on the fact that they're sending fentanyl to Mexico and Canada.
How soon on those tariffs?
Probably February 1st is the date we're looking at.
Now, the proposal is lower than the 60% tariff he floated during the campaign. China's vice premier saying the country would expand its imports of U.S. goods. Now, lately, China has also turned to South America for its ag supplies. So what's happening with soybean shipments from Brazil to China. Reuters reports shipments from 5 Brazilian firms have been halted after China says the beans did not meet its phytosanitary requirements. The report says there were concerns some cargoes had chemical contamination or pests and insects. Currently, it's unknown how long the suspension will last. Traders believe it will only be short term. Happening later today, President Trump's pick to head USDA will be questioned by the Senate Ag Committee. At her nomination hearing today, Brooke Rollins will likely be questioned on several issues, including her plans to advocate for a new farm bill, possible cuts to SNAP, trade policy, the Commodity Credit Corporation, immigration, biofuels, and of course, the ag economy. We talked to Farm Journal Washington analyst Jim Wiesmeyer about, if confirmed, what Rollins' first priority should be.
She will be easily confirmed in the Senate. I think the first thing I would tell her to focus on is, from a farmer perspective, get the money out to the farmer. Get that $10 billion out relative to the economic aid. Now, you know, Congress gave no more than 90 days after date of enactment, and that was passed December 21st. So they have until March 21 to get the money out, but I would get it out a lot sooner for cash flow at planning time.
Now, Wiesmeyer said number 2 on the list is getting the $21 billion in ag disaster aid out the door as soon as possible. We will have a link where you can watch Rollins' nomination hearing live up on AgDay's Facebook and X pages. People are digging out from a wicked winter storm that hit from Texas to Florida and up to the Carolinas. As Laura Aguirre reports, parts of the South right now are snowier and colder than some cities in the Midwest or even Alaska.
Street musicians are among the few venturing out in the Big Easy. New Orleans was among several southeastern cities in the path of a massive winter storm this week. More snow has now fallen here this month than in Anchorage, Alaska, around 8 inches, shattering its modern all-time daily record. The paralyzing storm put a snowy deep freeze over 1,500 miles from the Texas Gulf to the Atlantic coast and up through the Carolinas.
They're going to be driving on an ice rink.
In some cases, motorists were forced to trade horsepower for people power to get momentum.
I mean, we have snowstorms in Dallas, but not like this.
Please stay off the roadways, stay off the overpasses.
It was advice not everyone could heed.
It was super dark and the roads were very slippery, and so we decided to pull off here at the first exit that we saw.
In Alabama, this axe-throwing range became a refuge for dozens sheltering in place. Among the many snowfall records breaking Tuesday, Pensacola, Florida, which saw 7.6 inches officially, and some backyard rulers recording even higher, depths not seen here since 1954. The danger in the hours ahead now will be the ongoing bitter cold, which will cause snow melt to refreeze on many southern roadways for the next few days. In Charlotte, North Carolina, I'm Laura Aguirre reporting for AgDay.
Now, southern ranchers have no choice but to head out and deal with this extreme cold. Drovers hearing from Sundown Cattle Company in Georgia, where they say it's calving season for some, so they have to battle the chilly temperatures to keep them fed. They say they put out a bunch of hay and are staying busy busting through troughs as often as possible. They report seeing about 4.5 inches of snow at their farm. And in Alabama, Kim Slay, who runs cattle in central Alabama, says they have plenty of high quality hay, protein tubs, and bins of supplemental feed for their first and second calf heifers and young replacements. They say dealing with temperatures reaching just 10 degrees was worse than the snow. So will the South break out of these unusual conditions soon? Meteorologist Jack Van Meter has the latest for us.
And this is just something you don't see every single day. Take a look at this, pretty much just from the east of Houston through New Orleans and actually parts of the Florida Panhandle. We are seeing some significant snow depth that actually has started to come together from that snowstorm a couple days ago. We can see just north of Jacksonville over there in Georgia, actually dealing with close to a foot of snow as that system moved off into the Atlantic Ocean. That being said, for everybody else in the country, we are starting to see some melting of the snowpack, especially in parts of the Midwest. But that being said, the Rocky Mountain snowpack really holding still, and actually it's a pretty decent shot of some even more snow that will be added on later in the day. And no, this isn't a look at snow totals in the Midwest or Great Lakes. This is actually Florida. Laura in snowy Navarre, the Florida Panhandle that area is, reporting her part of the country saw 5.5 inches of snow. Other areas nearby up to 8 inches of snow, breaking a 130-year-old record. Just incredible there. I'll have more in your forecast coming up.
Flip Your Soil on Ag Day is brought to you by ESN. Hear why farmers across the country trust ESN to protect their nitrogen investment and maximize yield. Learn more at smartnitrogen.com.
Planting season may feel like it's months away, but now is the time for farmers to look at ways to flip their soil for maximum yields. In the last few years, biologicals and other amendments have found their way to the market. Randy Dowdy with Total Acre says the most important thing you can do for your soil is to make sure all of the nutrients are in balance.
We understand in soil fertility that it's not just fertility, it's balance of sufficiency. It's having sufficiency levels, but then those levels being in balance with one soil nutrient with the other. And in tissue samples, it's the same way. It's the balance of fertility within that plant.
He says the first step is understanding the biology that you have. Take soil samples and test your fields in order to get that data. Only with the right data can you make decisions about what the soil needs to be in balance. Grain markets catch their breath while cattle futures surge on Wednesday. We'll talk about prices coming up next in Markets Now. And later, this Oklahoma rancher wades into freezing water in order to save a calf. His incredible feat caught on camera.
Ag Day is brought to you by Germinator Closing Wheels. Germinator Closing Wheels provide quicker emergence and are more consistent in dry conditions than any other closing wheels. Order 12 to 16 rows today and qualify for free shipping or 20% off an end zone moisture management package.
Corn futures edged to a near 8-month high before pulling back along with soybeans midweek. AgDay's Michelle Rook has more on that and the big moves in cattle in Markets Now.
Grains closing mostly lower on Wednesday with livestock to the plus side. Ted Seifert is with us with analysis. Okay, so the pullback that we had in the grains after a big rally, obviously we did run up into some chart resistance. That was part of it, right?
Yes, psychological and chart resistance. For corn, you had both May and July corn testing the $5 mark, which has been talked about for quite some time now. So a little bit of a pullback off of that big target where we knew there was going to be wrestling orders there. Yeah, that makes sense. And we had gotten 75% overbought on the relative strength index. That is on the verge of an extreme case of being overbought. And the most overbought corn has been in over a year. So, it makes sense for corn to have a little bit of a pullback. Now, it was an outside reversal down day. We did not close below Tuesday's seemed like a Monday, but Tuesday's low. So it wasn't a quote unquote key reversal necessarily, but it was a little bit of a negative thing on a chart. So it'll be interesting to see if we get follow through to the downside in corn or not in the next coming days. As far as soybeans are concerned, yes, we started the overnight lower, but then we were higher immediately. And then after that, we really sold off and kind of took back a lot of yesterday's gains. I don't know. I'm very curious to see what happens with the soybeans.
Live cattle actually making some all-time highs. February got above and closed above the $200 mark. Does that suggest another leg higher here, Ted?
That's a really good question, right? I mean, we had been kind of putting in a bull flag right under the $2 mark, getting ready and kind of consolidating before it seemed like the inevitable test. And we closed above it, which is really impressive. So I think your technical traders might be looking at this as the beginning of a new leg higher. We'll have to see follow through on that in the really short term to confirm that. But, the interesting thing is cash traded steady. And that is to say that, futures have been trading discounts to cash. Cash prices have been trading record for a little while. So playing a little bit of catch up, I think makes sense. But in order for futures to continue to go higher, you need to see cash go higher too.
Thanks so much to Cypher Zaner Ag Hedge, and we'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
For professional marketing advice specifically tailored to your needs, call Zaner Ag Hedge at 312-277-0113.
Good news for this afternoon that we are actually going to start warming up after that polar vortex just decides to move back up into Canada and actually out into the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean. Here's high temperatures across the country today. See Chicago going to be right around 21 degrees. New York City at 30 degrees. We're not going to be seeing anybody going to be in the single digits for the first time in a few days, which is good news. Minneapolis also sitting at 12 degrees. Again, cooling down a little bit for tomorrow morning, but again, nothing major, nothing that everybody hasn't experienced before. As we can see, teens in the Great Lakes states, but down south, we are still dealing with those bitterly cold temperatures. New Orleans, 33 degrees, just a degree above freezing. Jacksonville, Florida at 27 degrees. So again, some of the cool temperatures are still going to be present. That being said, going to be warming up, especially tomorrow afternoon, right around 50 degrees for Jacksonville again. So kind of a return to normal for most folks. That being said, as for other major systems, are going to be eyeing the Gulf Coast again, just for a little bit of moisture that'll be moving up. Also, we have a very light clipper system moving down into the Dakotas that'll be depositing a little bit of moisture, especially along the border there of Canada and the U.S. But again, no major snowstorms are going to be forecasted as of now. Here's that temperature outlook. And as we can see, we're kind of moving away from the bitterly cold temperatures that we had in the middle of the month and actually going to start warming up to end the month as well, especially if you're in the Great Plains. Sunnyside, Georgia, 47 degrees and a low of 33 degrees. Great Falls, Montana, 37, low of 24. And finally, Elmont, New York, 31 degrees, low of 20 degrees.
Work continues between the U.S. and Mexico to reopen the U.S. border to imports of cattle from Mexico. Outgoing USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack sending a letter last week to Mexico's Secretary of Agriculture. In it, Vilsack acknowledged the progress being made to reopen cattle trade between the two countries following the detection of New World screwworm in Mexico. But he said more action is needed before trade can resume. Now, Vilsack requested immediate support from Mexico's Secretary of Ag for establishment of 2 planned sterile fly dispersal centers in southern Mexico as a way to strengthen current efforts. China is hitting records when it comes to beef imports. Now, Bloomberg says China's beef imports in 2024 totaled 2.87 million tons. That's reported to be an all-time high and 5% higher than in 2023. But while demand for the red meat has surged over decades, consumption in China declined last year as consumers cut back on spending. According to Bloomberg, the combination of rising imports, increased domestic production, and falling prices has put significant pressure on Chinese cattle farmers, with 2/3 reportedly operating at a loss. Up next, a rancher goes above and beyond in cold weather. How this rescue caught on camera in Oklahoma went viral. Next in the country. No matter the weather, farmers and ranchers have to feed and take care of their livestock. And recently, one Oklahoma rancher had to brave dangerous conditions to save a calf. That's Hunter Wagman of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, in the dark shirt, breaking through the ice to rescue the calf. Now, he says he was feeding his cattle on a nearby ranch when he got a call from his brother that a calf had walked out on the ice of a nearby pond and had fallen through. And he told Farm Journal's drovers that when he arrived, he noticed quickly that the calf was too far out to throw a rope and that it was treading water. So he decided to go in and get it, taking off some of his layers and his boots before heading into the freezing cold water in just shorts and a t-shirt.
I needed something warm to put back on because I knew I was going to have to take care of that calf after I got it out. So once I got it out, I put my jeans and boots back on and coat, and then I was able to catch the calf and its mama, take them up to the corrals and get them all dried off and get that calf laid down on hay and make sure it was all right.
Now, Hunter says the calf was up and kicking, bucking shortly thereafter. Of course, after the video was posted online, it went viral. But Hunter says everyone's had to rescue calves like this before. In this case, it just happened to be on video. But he's grateful for the recognition it gives all ranchers for their hard work. Hunter and all of our ranchers certainly deserve that recognition. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day on the Farm Country.